For 3,000 years, a code in the Bible has remained hidden. Now, it has been unlocked by computer, and it may reveal our future.
I don't even own a television. The Bible Code.
1, 2, 3. There are books that are good. There are books that are bad. There's some books so fucking awful you wish you never had read them at all. 'Cause a novel can ruin your life. Hey buddy, I don't even own a television.
All right, greetings, listeners. Welcome to I Don't Even Own a Television. It's a podcast about bad books and very, very shoddy science. My name is J.W. Friedman.
And I'm Chris, Code Talkin' Collision.
Simultaneous beer pops. Ooh, that was a Guinness in case you heard the little fizz noise afterwards, too. We're getting real crazy here. This is a show where we talk about bad books. Usually, we go with fiction. This time around, we went with fiction. But fiction masquerade
Scratch noise.
Yeah. Fiction masquerading as, I would say, prophecy. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah. Fiction presented as purported prophecy uncovered, something like that. Secrets revealed, if you will.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So what we're talking about is from 1997. This was, according to the back of the book, not only a New York Times bestseller, but the #1 national bestseller and the #1 bestseller in the world. Which, you know, that seems like a very vague metric, and I think you'll see as we move forward, the author of this book, Michael Drosnin, is a man who deals in vagaries. But what it is, essentially, is a guy who claims to have found a hidden code within the Hebrew Bible and uses it to predict every single thing that has happened, is happening, and will happen throughout the world.
And he tends to do this about 3 weeks after it makes the papers, which is maybe the funniest runner in the entire book. Is again and again and again, something will happen, at which point he'll think to look it up in the Bible code, and then he finds it.
Yeah, and we'll get to this later, but I want to talk about the process of looking things up in the Bible code because it is pretty fucking hilarious and kind of the definition of bad science, I would say, in many ways. But before we get too deep into this, I think we need to try to do a plot in 60 seconds, which is going to be hard because this is not really a story. Well, I mean, it is a story, depending on how you look at it, but...
There's people go places, they do things, they are changed by the events that they take part in and the actions they take.
Yeah, so I guess...
As was foretold.
Yes, I think we should give it a try. So here's that old song.
Nobody knows if you're finished or not. You got 60 seconds to give them a plot. Plot in 60 seconds.
All right, Collision, you're going to have 60 seconds to try to sum up the plot of this book. It has been prophesied in this crazy grid of letters and numbers that I arranged that you can't do it. So it's time to try to prove the universe wrong. Are you ready?
I really am bummed that you, unlike Michael Drosnin, apparently looked it up before I tried to do this.
I did. You don't even want to know about my Bible code. It's like 16 times more complicated than this one.
Ooh.
It involves a Caesarean cipher.
Ooh. Okay, yeah, I'm ready to try.
All right. Begin.
Michael Drosnin, a hard-nosed investigative reporter, gets a hot tip. There's a mathematician in Jerusalem you should see. He found the exact date the Gulf War would begin, in the Bible. Drosnin meets the scientist, Eli Rips, who shows him a word search made out of the Bible with 5 words circled in 5 different colors. Fire on third Shabbat, missile, war, Hussein picked the day, Sodom, and enemy. And this means because Saddam Hussein fired Scud missiles at Israel the day after U.S.-led coalition forces invaded Iraq, that the Bible code is very real and really predicted the Gulf War. Rips explains that the way it works is that you write the Bible in different columns and look to see if you can find words in unexpected directions or if you can find words by skipping letters. If you find a word by some method, you look for other words near it using any method or no method, and then once you have a pile of words, you make up an interpretation of them and you tell people about it. Drosnin and Rips keep searching the codex and they discover Israel is under threat, Japan is at risk of earthquakes, Armageddon is coming.
In 2006.
Probably in 1996 or 2006 or 2112. And probably Armageddon will take the form of a giant earthquake, or an economic slowdown that's Japan's fault, or a comet might hit the Earth, or maybe nuclear war. And we should worry about these things not for any other reason, but because they were foretold in the Bible code.
Okay, way over, but also perfect. And I do have to say, I love the fact that when you boil it all down like that, this is a man covering all the bases. He's got a hard shift to the right for the left-handed batter, basically. So. Ooh, it's baseball time. My metaphors are changing.
Yeah, I mean, I was prepared for a wrestling analogy there. I was not prepared for baseball.
Yeah, no, it's not a four-way dance. It's the Ted Williams shift. So
pull your goalies, people. It's that time of year.
I think it's awesome that you described it as word searches, because my very first note is this is the story of a man who met a con artist and then tried to turn the Old Testament into a junior jumble from the funny pages.
But we should explain that we keep making this joke because the experience of reading this book, which is a non-standard format, it's like, I don't know, 8x10 or something, or 8x9.
Yeah.
So it's an oversized paperback. But like the average page has on it a third or two-thirds or half or all of it covered in just equidistantly spaced columns of Hebrew characters.
Yeah, it looks like a word search from an Israeli newspaper, right, basically.
And what you'll get is that, and then some of those characters will be circled or in little rectangles or in little trapezoids. Those are my favorite.
Yeah.
And then there'll be like an all caps like legend underneath. And I'm just going to flip through randomly and find you a couple because it's probably the most satisfying thing about reading this book.
Yeah, let's do it.
The next war. Another will die. AV. Prime Minister. I guess Av is July.
Yeah. Av is July. Yeah, let's find some more.
5757/1997. For you, the encoded / hidden secrets. He sealed the book until the time of the end. Ooh, that's actually a pretty good one because that's kind of the point of this whole non-narrative is that their theory is that the Bible code itself is a computer program, which is an exciting way to refer to something that can be analyzed by a computer. But they keep saying it's a computer program and that it was encoded so cleverly, presumably by God, but we'll come back to that, so cleverly that only now, with the awesome power of Windows 95 Pentium-powered processors, can we crack the code, possibly either causing or just revealing the end of all things.
It's referred to as a time lock, several points of the book, and I don't want to get too much into this right now because this is definitely one of my low points. But yeah, so basically the idea here is that this was created so people wouldn't be able to understand it until they had the technology to do so, which I believe was the plot of a Star Trek movie.
Probably.
I want to say the V'ger one.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't remember what Star Trek 1 was about. Like V'ger was the Voyager probe.
Oh, you're right.
That somehow became a god because
reasons.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're going to get so many tweets about this, but that's cool.
I mean, I should know that. Like, I'm wearing, like, Star Trek cosplay right now. I've recorded every episode of these in Spock ears.
Yeah. And, I mean, if we're going to get lots of tweets about something, I would rather they be about Star Trek than, the fact that my voice is annoying. So,
yeah, so in this one instance and this one instance only, if you would like to explain to me the plot of Star Trek 1, the film, Star Trek the Motion Picture, I believe it was called, fire up your tricorder and do at me.
Yeah, especially if you have that iPad app that makes your Twitter feed look like a tricorder. I think they stopped making that after like the first year the iPad came out, but I had it. So, yeah. Yeah, man. So this book basically, it's about 200 and some odd pages. Yeah. I'd say there's maybe less than 100 pages of actual text. There's a lot of junior jumbles and a lot of bullshittery.
And it's still a fucking slog, even if you give the barest glance to the word searches. This was a tough one.
It was. How much do you know about Robert Drosnin, our author?
I know everything there is to know. No, I don't. I've been unable to crack the code that is Michael Drosnin.
Well, apparently, did I say Robert? I meant to say Michael. Apparently,
that's a code. If you can crack it at home, fire up your tricorders
and get ready to save the world, because that's what this book is really about.
Right.
But yeah, apparently he was a journalist for a long time. I think he wrote for the Washington Post, I want to say.
So he says. Yeah. Apparently the Wall Street Journal as well.
I would like to believe that, but I also have a feeling that he is a man prone to fabrication, and we'll get to this as we go through the book. But there's a lot of similarities between, say, Michael Drosnin and I said it's Michael, right?
Michael.
Okay, man, I have a mental block against this, but there's a lot of similarities between him and like the kind of guy who like writes cryptic messages on the sidewalk with chalk about, time cube kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like he and old Gene Time Cube Ray would probably be real good buddies. And I think we'll get more into that as we move forward. But it's just worth noting that, how can I put this politely? He's a crackpot.
I mean, whether or not his work, I'm looking in his introduction, whether or not his work when he was a crime reporter for the Post or, just a general news reporter, it sounds like, for the Wall Street Journal, whether or not those are compromised by his later work, I can't say.
Yeah.
What I can say about the Bible Code is that it is a bunch of flights of interpretive fancy, and that is the nicest possible way I can say it, and large chunks of it go well beyond your description of, amiable time cube style crack pottery, and go into just outright fabrication of nonsense.
Yeah, definitely. And, we are going to get too political on this because it's filled with touchy subjects that I don't want to get into and, get people mad at us and stuff. But I will say that one of the main things about this book is Arabs are scary. And we get into that quite a bit too, which I'm not a huge fan of. But almost every prophecy here kind of leads to something about the fact that the Arabic world is plotting the demise of the world as we know it, which that's a little intense and weird coming from a guy who spent most of his life as a beat writer about, for several newspapers. I mean, what was the mathematician's name? Eli Rips?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically,
Good name.
Eli Rips, he also shreds really good. You should hear him play Steve Vai solos. It's pretty amazing. But he apparently is an Israeli mathematician that our hero, writer met.
Our hero.
And appears to have sold him a load of what I would call bunkum. And the rest of this book is just him kind of extrapolating on that.
So I think that's half fair. Like, Rips is a mathematician, published with two collaborators a scholarly article with a much more modest set of claims.
Yes.
And I did work through some of that article, which is included in this, not all of it. My favorite moment is there's a 3-paragraph description of how they generated some random numbers, including a 2-step process of picking some random numbers and then feeding them to the random number generator in Turbo Pascal.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I got a kick out of that. But his claim was only that words with semantically related meanings, and his example was hammer and anvil, appear to be coded in the book of Genesis only at higher than random probability levels.
Yeah.
Right. So he says, okay, so if you take the text of Genesis only and write it as columns and break the number of columns arbitrarily every so often and start looking, in opposite the direction that you would normally read, which in Hebrew is right to left.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're looking up to down, basically, you will find meaningful word combinations at higher than average, and that you will find in relative proximity related combinations higher than average. That is the sum total of Eli Ripp's claim.
Uh-huh.
Drosnin hears this and goes if I can coin a phrase, right off the fucking rails on a crazy train.
Yeah, for sure.
And just goes completely nonlinear on this. And Rips is quoted throughout. The Wikipedia page says Rips has repudiated the Bible Code and repudiated Drosnin in particular.
Which does not surprise me in the slightest.
And I think it's because every single time Drosnin finds something, he calls Rips on the phone, which sounds exhausting,
Yeah.
and says something like, what are the odds these two words would be close together? Which is a question that, even having read the technical article, I have no clear idea what the process for doing this would be on Rip's behalf. And his answers are always bare minimum, oh, that's at least 1,000 to 1.
Yeah, which, speaking of probability, is not insanely high, by the way. Like 1,000 to 1 when you're talking about a text that I believe it contains over 330,000 letters. Like,
Yeah,
that's
like
not an insanely high probability rating. But either way, yeah, the way that this code works essentially is they created an array of letters, one at a time, and then they would move, say, like, they pick a seed value of 4 and then take every fourth letter, and then they'd take a seed value of 8 and move every 8th letter, starting at different letters.
So for seed value, you mean how many letters you skip.
Yeah.
Right. So it's basically, imagine you're looking at a word search, and this is a really complicated word search, and instead of all the letters forming words in a row, you have to pick, say, the top left, move over 4, pick that one, move over another 4, pick that one, and that forms cat.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, where this gets interesting is that, like, you could do this with just about any piece of text on the planet. To the point, like, when this came out, and, you know, there was obviously a lot of pushback against it, despite it being a #1 bestseller, because people were into really weird shit at that point in time in America, I guess. This was Da Vinci Code era, for sure.
Millennium Fever.
Yeah. But, you know, there were people holding contests to see, like, oh, what can you find in Moby Dick, you know? And people were able to apply the same exact methodology to Moby Dick and you know, find things that had happened in the past, like with Clinton and Lewinsky and things like that. So I found that pretty interesting. I mean, like, literally, if you try hard enough, you can find these correlations in just about anything.
We've been going pretty deep into this. I want to give one deep dive of one particular example.
Okay, yeah.
Just because I think it's really important that we get down at the very beginning, that when Drosnin says, I uncovered the information in this text, what he means is I made a computer find certain kinds of information for me
That I was already looking for.
I made the computer make this for me. So here's this. This is page 27 if you're reading along at home, which I implore you not to do.
Yeah, don't.
First, we asked the computer to search the Bible for the name Yitzhak Rabin. It appeared only once with a skip sequence of 4,772.
Jesus fucking Christ. That means there were 4,000, what was it, 72?
4,772.
Letters in between each letter of this fellow's name.
Right. And what Drosnin never does is he's really canny about switching back and forth between years and meanings and stuff. The fact that he did not immediately then look up what happened in 4772 on the Hebrew calendar is a major miss for him.
Yeah.
Boo, Droz. Anyway, the computer divided the entire Bible, the whole strand of 304,805 letters, into 64 rows of 4,772 letters. The Bible code printout is a snapshot in the center of that matrix. In the middle of the snapshot is the name Yitzhak Rabin with each letter circled. Then he finds across some version of assassin will assassinate. Mm-hmm. Right? And another related thing is then semi-near. But again, with a completely unrelated skip sequence.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just this sort of like, make me a thing. Okay, I have made you Yitzhak Rabin in a row, the computer says, because you asked me to.
Yes.
And I've done this by doing this perfectly reasonable thing to do, which is to take a string of characters that is 300,000 plus long and divide it quite naturally into 47 672 separate rows.
Yeah.
Like you would normally display a text.
Of course.
And then you're free to play word search on it and look for stuff. And then when you find stuff, you pretend it's related.
This is the internet anagram solver, basically, where you
Yes.
just like you type in something and then you scroll through the whole list until you find something that looks moderately clever, like, hey, my name means a chicken pooped or something like that. And it's no different than that. Like the whole idea of science in general, as far as I know, and I mean, far be it from me, I'm not a Washington Post journalist nor a mathematician.
I thought you were a scientician.
I am a scientician, but the whole idea of science, I believe, is to try to find truths, not to prove preconceived notions.
And like all of this is stuff like I want to give one example, and then maybe we should do some high points and low points. Einstein, he finally thinks he'll look for Einstein, is encoded with "they prophesied a brainy person," and this is evidence for Drosnin. Okay, who prophesied Einstein?
It's a good question. They did.
They.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Keep your ears tuned for things like he and it, which are always read in very specific ways according to Drosnin. But since I know how pronouns work, that strikes me as a tiny bit fishy.
Also, I mean, when did the word brainy come into common usage? Because I'm willing to bet it was not, Christian time. Like I very much doubt that people back in the days of, the Old Testament were using words like brainy.
I mean, so that would not have been a word. That would have been the cross, which is just character by character transliteration into English, right?
Yep.
He finds L.A. Caliph, Calif, over and over again. That's his version of Los Angeles. It's definitely weighting the dice a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean the whole thing kind of relies on the idea that you could take a Hebrew letter and turn it into numbers if you need to, turn it into an English character if you need to. It's very, very silly. We're getting so serious here, but I think it's just because this book just it's frustrating.
This is the humorlessest book we've read in a long time. I mean, this is John Norman, Outlaw of Gore level seriousness and lack of levity.
Yeah, so it's a little hard to make quips about it, and mostly I'm just sitting here flummoxed by the fact that so many fucking people bought this, and this definitely falls into the grand category that we've discussed before of books my mom sent me in college that were like, you need to read this, it will change your life, to quote a Zach Braffism, and it definitely didn't. But yeah, this and the Da Vinci
I
Code.
don't know, man. You're still thinking about it 15 years later.
I am, and I'm still listening to the Shins. So.
They just keep getting better,
Yeah, definitely. There's no diminishing returns in the Shins catalog for sure. Don't at me.
Yeah.
So I guess it's probably time for us to try to identify some high points and some low points. This is going to be fucking tricky.
As was foretold, we're going to wrestle with this one for a while.
They said we would do high points and low points, so here's a song.
High points are high, and low points are low. High points, low points, get ready to go.
All right, I guess we got to start with some high points. So Collision, why don't you go first?
Okay. I am not the first person to notice this, but the Bible in general and the Old Testament in particular are extremely fucking metal.
Yeah.
So I would like to read the table of contents, which was absolutely my high point.
Ooh, it's good.
When I picked this sucker up from the library, interlibrary loan, say what? This is the first thing my gaze fell upon, and I was like, oh, I'm going to love this. So get your Les Pauls tuned down. Get ready to hit that distortion pedal and make with the chugga chugga. The Bible Code. Atomic Holocaust. All his people to war. The Sealed Book. The Recent Past. Armageddon. Apocalypse. The Final Days. Coda. Like,
Wow.
I have at least 4 records with basically that near verbatim as the track listing. And you know what? All 4 of those records fucking smoke, dude.
For me, this is an esoteric high point to go with the esoteric nature of what we're reading. But I read a bunch of this book this morning at the Black Bear Diner, which is a family-style restaurant. And while I was eating my breakfast, I had the Bible Code open and my moleskin notebook, furiously scribbling notes. And every time the waitress came over, she looked at me like somebody had just let me out of an institution. And I had a great time with that because, it's fun to be weird. So that's my first high point for sure. But I think we should move into low points.
I mean, it's hard for me to pull away from this track list of the sickest political thrash album of 1987, Jay, but I guess we have to.
Yeah, we do. Put down the Man-O-War records. It's time to get low.
Yeah. This is sort of a structural flaw, a narrative flaw, if you will.
You don't say.
I do say. I think I mentioned earlier that like reading this book is like watching somebody be really, really bad at doing a word search. And part of the reason for that is he never thinks to search the archive for anything preemptively. He only does it reactively. Like basically after he sees something on the front page of the Jerusalem Post, he then goes and sees if it's in the Bible Code. And that means that we see the same grids over and over and over again, but he's constantly finding new stuff. You know what I mean? So like the third time we see this grid, it's not just Yitzhak Rabin. It's Yitzhak Rabin with Amir / name of assassin / Netanyahu / assassin will assassinate / all his people to war. All of which were purportedly on the grid originally. He just hadn't thought to look for them.
Yeah, because that's how science works.
And he keeps doing this over and over and over again. And it's just this really deflating, boring reading experience. It's sort of like watching Primer with the sound off and like if Primer was really shitty.
Yeah, it's just like looking at that GIF that's like the timeline of Primer over and over again, more than anything else. Yeah, totally. There's a lot of live, die, and repeat here going on.
Oh my God.
Like, oh, you like this the first time, you'll like it even better the fifth time with a slightly new detail.
Ooh.
And less Tom Cruise being charming.
Although Live, Die, Repeat was freaking sweet.
Oh, I love that movie. But I'm just saying, imagine it's boring and all about fake math, and there you go.
Wouldn't that be like, I don't know. I feel like this was like 10 really mediocre thrillers.
What if you took all the plot out of A Beautiful Mind and it was just Russell Crowe writing the same thing on a board over and over again? That's this book.
Oh my God.
For me, I think my low point is something we alluded to earlier, where throughout this book, he asserts that the Bible is actually a computer program.
Beep boop.
Which belies a gigantic understanding of what a computer program actually is, because at no point in this does he describe the Bible as a series of instructions to compute the solution to a problem. What it essentially is, according to his own description, is a data set that requires a computer program to solve. These are two entirely different things, and as a card-carrying nerd, it pissed me off a lot, because no, the Bible is not a computer program. Even if you're willing to buy into this guy's weird perception that, you know, everything here is a time lock that was just waiting for the right piece of technological advancement to come along and make it possible to solve. It's not like something that we mentioned on our last bonus episode that came in the back of like Byte magazine, where you type it in line by line and then hit run and it does something.
Go ahead and type, Genesis. Hell, do the entire Torah into your Python interpreter, hit return, and see what happens.
Yeah, it's not a computer program. It's a data set. And Sorry, that just it gets all of my my programmer hairs standing up.
Yeah.
And it's rare on this show that I admit that I do computer programming for a living, but I will admit that here right now just to say, fuck you, Richard Drosnin. You have no idea what you're talking about.
It's Michael.
See, I told you. I dislike this guy so much. I've given him like 8 first names now.
I just refuse to remember his
How about if I just call him Butthead instead? Hey Beavis, did you know that if you if you Google Benjamin Netanyahu, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was the worst Butthead ever, but
That's actually pretty good.
I don't know. My Beavis is better. Anyway, sorry about that, folks.
No, it's all good. I'm struggling with a low point because I don't want to fall back on my old standard. Every page of it I had to read. I think I'm just going to say that the interpretive acumen on display here is not something that I'm impressed by. So let's get some examples here. These were details as precise as the story reported on CNN. The full name of Yitzhak Rabin, the name of his assassin, the year he was killed. Okay, let's see what that looks like in another example. Abraham Lincoln was killed by John in 1863. CNN, you fell the fuck off.
Yeah.
Like, these are not wildly precise details. We get things like this. All the leaders of World War II are in the Bible code. Roosevelt, Hitler, Stalin, Churchill.
That's a selective subset.
Yeah, we're a couple light. Also, are there is not really an interesting test. If you've got an alphabetic system, you can randomize it and it'll spit you out some strings.
Yep, like I guarantee you, almost every book on my bookshelf, I could type in letter by letter and find all of those names using this pattern.
Yeah.
Just saying.
This gets a little political, and I'll ask you to forgive me, but I just need you to, we can all pause, and I think we can all agree with this.
Yeah, and I mean, it's worth noting, too, both Collision and I have very different outlooks on certain political things, so neither of us are going to fight, so you don't need to write in to fight us about it either.
Yeah!
Except we are going to fight.
Right, we will fight. It's going to be a cage match. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
If the Bible code was right, Israel will be in danger for the next 5 years. That's a little like saying, if the Bible code was right, Collision was going to drink some beers in the next 5 years.
It's a valid point.
Like,
You mean to say a routinely villainized city-state surrounded by enemies might have some problems over the next half-decade?
Yeah. If one thing seemed likely, it was that Japan was going to suffer a series of major earthquakes.
Yep.
Okay. I definitely am picking up what you're laying down here.
Ooh, I have one. I have one.
Yeah.
If anything was likely, somebody in Florida was going to get bit by an alligator.
That does seem likely. Now, Jay, is that likely because you read it in the jumble? Or is it likely because, there's a lot of both people and gators in close proximity in Florida?
I'm going to say the jumble. Because I believe in the power of magic.
Good call. I'll just do one last example, which is like Drosnin veering radically out of his lane in a way that's so entertaining it almost verges on a high point for me. An all-out war in the Middle East could quickly become global. Physicists would call it the butterfly effect. It is fundamental to chaos theory.
And a great Keanu Reeves movie.
And this.
Or sorry, it wasn't Keanu Reeves. It was, what's his name? Ashton Kutcher.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
God. Wildly misinformed physicists might call that the butterfly effect.
Whereas I would call it the Mothman prophecy.
Yeah. People who are maybe a little more geopolitically savvy might call it the result of interlocking treaties and defense agreements.
Yeah.
And it's particularly funny because there is a blow-by-blow pre-Wikipedia breakdown of the starting of World War I. which rests exclusively on a pissed off Serbian killed Archduke Sir Ferdinand, and that started it all.
Yeah.
Right. But then it kind of shows how the dominoes fall. Like, this treaty brought this country into the war. That another treaty brought another country into the war. There's no need to drag poorly understood chaos physics into your shitty book to explain why war in the Middle East would not just be war in the Middle East for very long.
Yeah,
major low point.
Yeah, it's pretty silly, and I'm going to go even sillier with my low point. And this one's a little niche, but as a Jewish person, it really struck me. There are several points of this where he uses the Bible code to attempt to prove the existence of heaven and hell, which that is not a part of the Jewish faith.
You don't need to use the Bible code. Just go into your local record store.
Yeah.
Go to the Black Sabbath section, flip through, flip past the first 5 records, which are the Ozzy records. Those are the good ones. Then flip into the Dio section, and eventually you'll get there. Heaven and hell. Simple as that.
I mean, I'm just saying,
or do I
right?
misunderstand?
If the whole idea of this book, which it is that when God gave Moses the words of the Old Testament, he was secretly presenting a code that could be used to crack things in the future. I doubt that any of it would be something that explicitly goes against Jewish doctrine. And the concept of heaven and hell are Christian inventions. Like, it just pissed me off so much.
Holy shit. So what if you search in the Bible code for, like, pulled pork sandwich with shrimp on top?
Oh, I'm sure it's there. A good old Cubano.
And then is it, like, crossed with definitely eat this?
Yeah.
Like,
lobster and butter sauce.
That whole cloven hoofed thing, total joke, guys.
Yeah.
Is what I'm speculating is encoded somewhere in the Bible code.
Sausage McMuffin. Yeah, I don't know. That just really, it irked me because it seemed like, Drosnin himself says he's secular and he's a journalist and he's not coming at this from a religious perspective. And it is never more obvious than the fact when his exciting revelations go completely against, his supposed origin story of this code.
I mean, and Eli Rips is like a trained mathematician and over and over again identified as a very devout, very faithful man.
Yeah.
Right? At which point, 2/3 of the way through the book, the following happens, which definitely kind of reveals Drosnin's perhaps lack of
social skills?
Yeah, and lack of a good ear with respect to the faith.
Yeah.
I told Rips that it seemed to me there were 2 ways to read these famous lines from the Talmud, which means I, a non-religious Gentile, started to pontificate about Torah interpretation to a devout Jew and a trained mathematician. This is like getting a gold medal in the should have stayed in your lane Olympics.
There's the whole concept of a Talmudic scholar, which the whole idea is that there are still people trying to interpret the Torah in different ways and figure out what things mean. And it's like, nope, this guy fucking cracked the computer program, and now I'm going to lecture a religious man about the teachings of his the people who have been doing this for their entire lives, for generations. Like, oh God, it's so frustrating. It would be like if I read one book about, Christianity and then started telling people about, the Q source of Jesus and all this. Oh, wait, that's...
If you are going to read one book and then start pontificating to Christians, I recommend the Gnostic Gospels by Elaine Pagels.
There we go.
Because that has been helping me annoy people for decades.
Yeah. I just think it says a lot about this dude's self-regard and also his tin ear, as you described. So,
Whew. All right. So let's try to climb out of the valley of
the shadow of death.
There you go. I was trying to come up with something specifically Old Testament and Jewish, but I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. So unlike Michael Drosnin, I think I'll just shut up for a second.
I know that as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll take a look at my life and realize there's nothing left.
Let us climb the mount, deliver a sermon about what's good in this book if we can.
I got a good one.
I don't think that cavalry is going to save us he said in the most labored pun of all fucking time. Okay, so you want to go first?
Yeah, I do. This book, if you take out all of the charts and you take out all of the proselytizing, what you essentially have is a really cool story about a slightly disturbed man writing very disturbing correspondence to random world leaders who barely ever reply.
Yep.
Like almost every chapter of this book is like, then I wrote a letter to Benjamin Netanyahu, or then I wrote this to so-and-so. And it's never described what they say back, but it is described that it contains things like, you're going to be assassinated. And I love thinking that this dude's like study looks like a CSI evidence room with like lots of pieces of yarn connecting various index cards. And
This book is 100% that GIF from It's Always Sunny.
oh yeah,
That people are always posting in lieu of having a personality or something to say. Yeah, that's what reading this book is like.
yeah. I mean, it's very much like it's kind of like he could very easily be the villain in a CSI episode. And is like maybe one step away from mailing anthrax to people. So if you like look at it in that light, it's pretty entertaining.
We were talking about this off air. He's constantly faxing or writing letters to world leaders and other, like scientists and famous people. And like, we were just genuinely wondering, like, were you like typing these up, or were you just like cutting the letters out of like magazines that you had to hand? Because these are terrifying. Like some of his own direct quotes are things like, off the top of my head, like, I cannot tell you if Israel is in danger. All I can tell you is that it was prophesied in the Bible code.
Yeah, it's intense.
The Bible code is now in charge of all things.
Yeah, it's if I got one of these letters in the mail, I would be terrified, and not because of the prophecy, because of the man sending it.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go out on the last high point, which is a little bit similar to my first one, but there is a scene in here of biblical interpretation that I was completely aware of because I am not a biblical scholar. I will simply say that. 65 million years ago, an asteroid bigger than Mount Everest struck the Earth, exploding with the force of 300 million hydrogen bombs and killed all the dinosaurs. Asteroid and dinosaur are encoded together in the Bible. The biblical name for the first creatures of God created on earth is also encoded in the same place. And God created the great Tannin, states the first chapter of Genesis. The word means dragons or monsters. It describes some huge animal that no longer exists. And dragon is encoded across dinosaur, just above asteroid. With them is encoded the name of the dragon that, according to legend, God slayed before creation.
What?
It suggests that the extinction of the dinosaurs was the real slaying of the dragon, the cosmic event recalled by Isaiah. Was it not you who cut Rahab in pieces and pierced through the dragon? So essentially what I got from this is apparently in the Old Testament, God fought Godzilla before creating the earth. And this is like, moments like this are the best thing I've read in weeks.
There's a real kind of I would say kind of a mashup happening here of the Bible and Arthurian legend. I wonder how many times you can find Lancelot or Guinevere in the Bible if you search.
Oh my God! That I think we can agree that an ancillary low point is Drosnin's complete lack of creativity when it comes to searching shit in the Bible code.
That's true.
Like,
I would be putting in swear words for sure. Like, how many times can you find fuck in the Bible?
Yeah, like, I mean, okay, fine. I get it. You've got the Old Testament. It is at least plausible that Israel is something that you're going to want to search for, and that it's going to be heavily concerned with Israel. And, but like, come on, man, think outside the box.
What about butt chugging? I'm just saying, the possibilities are endless.
It was prophesied in the Bible code. I happened to look this up before I came here. Anytime somebody says, what about butt chugging, it turns out it's a good time to take a break.
I think that's true. Let's do that. The break, not the butt chugging. We'll be right back.
First one, then the other.
You got the phone?
Yo, the holy script from Genesis 1:26 says, let us make man in our image under our likeness. First of all, who's they? You see, if God was truly a single entity, that's not what he would say. We, as the Elohim, gods and goddesses, possess a marvelously monstrous subconscious life forms to speak in very high-pitched sounds and squeaks, short staccato clicks and beeps, a highly advanced form of speech. Even though to us it seems like they only chatter in their teeth, they used to swim deep in the oceans beneath.
All right, as was written and foretold in the most convoluted way possible, we're back. I forgot to mention the first time around that there's not just one of these books.
What?
There's 3 of them, and they all have progressively more unhinged subtitles. The first one is just the Bible Code. The second one is the Bible Code 2, the Countdown, which is...
the final countdown.
Yeah, well, basically, because it's referring to the fact that the world will end in the year 2006. So 2006 came and went, and the world was still here. And rather than turning his skills to, say, something more along his lines like solving the Slylock Fox cartoons on the funny pages, or maybe doing some Will Shortz puzzle books, he decided to double down and put out the Bible Code 3, Saving the World, which... Holy shit, dude. You think very highly of yourself, Mr. Drosnin.
Well, I mean, there's 2 possibilities here. One is that he does think that by finding this absolutely real Bible code, that he is now some kind of prophet of the ends of days. And he definitely believes that the end of days is a very real possibility. There's a lot of the book we haven't touched on that I don't care to touch on about how, it's possible that some of the, bad things in the end of days and Armageddon are actually preventable if we make the right choices. And these are just warnings, not, prophecies of doom, blah, 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 blah,
also
blah.
known as hedging one's bets.
So yeah, there is the possibility that he does believe that he is on a mission to save us all. There is another possibility, which is either more or less charitable to him, I can't tell which, that he is doing that classic publishing technique known as milking it.
Yeah, I would say that might be the actual case, but Saving the World is a pretty strong subtitle for your quote-unquote non-fiction book, I've got to say.
Look, buddy, if you published a book that said it is almost certain that the world is going to end at a specific date, and the world didn't exactly get a shit ton better, but did kind of conspicuously fail to end at that date, you would probably resort to similar tactics.
I guess so. I
Actually,
think
you wouldn't, because
I wouldn't.
you're not a fucking loser.
I would crawl somewhere with my tail tucked between my legs and lick my wounds, I think. But, I think it is time for us to enlighten you all with some dramatic thoughts in a segment we call Dramatic Readings, Saving the World. Here's the song.
Dramatic readings, we're gonna make it sound important. Dramatic readings, yeah, I got some words for you.
All right, so we're going to take pieces of this book and try to make them sound more dramatic than they are, which is fucking hard because this is fire and brimstone out the wazoo. But I got one here, if you don't mind if I go first.
I insist that you do, as was foretold.
Okay, so. I could not believe it. I never believed there would be an apocalypse. I had always assumed that it was an empty threat, the club all religions use to keep people in line. All through history, doomsayers thought they saw in the Bible predictions that the world would end in their own times. They read the words of Daniel and Revelation and were sure it was a picture of the present moment. The keepers of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the zealots who hid copies of nearly all the books of the Bible in caves above the Dead Sea more than 2,000 years ago, were certain that the final battle was right upon them. The early Christians believed that the New Testament clearly stated that the end would come in their own lifetimes. Did not Christ warn, "This generation shall not pass till all these things have happened"? In every succeeding age, someone arose to say the end was now. At the first millennium, in the year 1000 AD, at every time of war and crisis, and they always quoted the Bible, and they were always certain that they had pierced the veil, seen through the symbolic language, and knew exactly when the end was coming, and they were always wrong. But no serious scientist had ever before found a computerized code in the Bible, a mathematically proven fact that had been confirmed by every other scientist who actually examined it. And no one had ever before found a code that accurately predicted real events in the real world. No one before had found names and dates in advance. No one before had found the name of a comet and the day that it would strike Jupiter. No one before had found the name of a prime minister and the name of his assassin and the year he would be killed. No one before had found the exact day a war would begin. The Bible code was different. So, once again, megalomania, I believe.
Tiny bit. Although it started off a little bit humble. Like, you could have reread the very, first 2 or 3 sentences with, Dear Penthouse Letters, I never thought this would happen to me. Yeah. I never actually believed in religion or Armageddon before.
Until I constructed an elaborate fantasy world where programming things into a computer and having it search for words decided to confirm all of my preconceived notions. I found that to be a very good passage because I think it kind of illustrates the lack of self-awareness present in this, where it's like, everyone's thought that, but they were stupid. But I thought that, and I wasn't. So I liked that a lot. And that is my dramatic reading.
I mean, that's a really good one. I mean, he does hint in the future, too, we'll have even better computers that will allow us to, take this and not just make 2-dimensional arrays, but make 3-dimensional things and, totally hypercube this shit.
Yeah, and then at that point, we'll have the holodeck, finally.
Yeah.
And I'll be able to get it on with a sexy alien. So.
You said that into the microphone.
Oh, fuck.
Right?
God damn it. Or maybe I could just hang out at a jazz club with Riker while he plays the trombone.
Yeah. All right. I guess I need to find some kind of reading of dramatical nature in here as well.
Yes, I believe you do.
Einstein once said, "The distinction between past, present, and future is only an illusion, however persistent. Time," said Einstein, "is not at all what it seems. It does not flow only in one direction, and the future exists simultaneously with the past." The other great physicist who defined our universe, Newton, not only said that the future already exists, but believed that it could be known in advance, and in fact himself searched for the hidden code in the Bible that would reveal it. Now, some scientists, including the leading physicist in the world today, Stephen Hawking, believe that people might one day actually be able to travel in time. Time travel, says Hawking, might be within our capabilities in the future. Maybe the poet T.S. Eliot was right. Time present and time past are both perhaps present in time future, and time future contained in time past. Okay, give me 1 second, because I know what you're thinking, dear listener. Did Michael Drosnin just look up time in Bartlett's familiar quotations?
I think he did.
Well, this book is heavily annotated, so let's just go see what he has to say about that particular page.
Okay. I do want to go on record as saying this was a true thing about Isaac Newton, though. He did believe that the Bible was a cryptogram and dedicated a lot of his life to solving it, which just goes to show you that smart people can do weird things, too.
He was also mad at both magnetism and gravity and believed that they had to be wrong because spooky action at a distance couldn't possibly be real.
Yeah.
So the stuff he's best known for, he actually thought was probably wrong, which I think is kind of cool. Anyway, it goes like this. The quoted letter by Einstein was written just after his friend died 50 years later, less than a month before Einstein's own death. The full context of his statement about the true nature of time is therefore poignant. Now he has departed from this strange world a little ahead of me. That signifies nothing. For us believing physicists, the distinction between past, present, and future is only an illusion, however persistent. Thanks, Mike. Next time, maybe look up, Is This a Metaphor? On isthisametaphor.com.
Yeah.
This gets even better, though. Is this from Bartlett's familiar quotations? This is the best moment in the book for me. Stephen Hawking's statement that time travel might be within our capabilities is quoted from his introduction to The Physics of Star Trek.
Oh my God.
Not just the physics of Star Trek, the introduction to the physics of Star Trek.
This is heavily sourced
Yeah.
from only the most top notch.
Like, this is the guy I want explaining chaos theory to me in the trenches.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen Hawking was a brilliant individual, but I'm willing to bet that he was saving, a lot of his good points for books that didn't revolve around popular science fiction television shows. I'm just saying. Also, how serendipitous that I made a holodeck joke just a second ago.
Mm-hmm. It all comes together. Honestly, that's why I called the Audible, because I was going to read a slightly different one that was just like way more fucking metal.
Oh, I mean, this book is filled with metal. I almost want to do a cut up of this book and just turn it into a black metal album. Almost creating a Bible code of my own, cutting out pieces of this book and putting it back together. And
that is actually kind of cool because, William S. Burroughs and sort of a fellow traveler of his whose name I'm spacing right now.
Oh, we're the best book podcast ever.
Yeah, had this method of cut up. Where they would just take a page, slice it up the middle, kind of shuffle them together, and see if interesting patterns kind of fell out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's a long-standing tradition, particularly with the Bible, but also with other books of bibliomancy, where I can't tell what decision I should make. I'm going to flip to a random page, look at it, and see, if that sheds any light on my current situation. Mm-hmm. All of this is by way of saying we're the animal whose unique thing isn't that we've got sharp teeth, strong claws, powerful guard hairs or anything. We're the animal that has this gigantic organ for cooling the blood in the head that has this side benefit of making patterns.
Well, I mean, speaking of bibliomancy, there are a few days that go by where my decisions aren't governed by flipping through a Boxcar Children book. So it's a good thing to do. And that's why I always end up spending so much time trying to solve the mystery of who stole the cooling pie from the windowsill.
Dude, we got to talk.
As long as we can talk about the Boxcar Children, I'm cool.
Well, I'll look it up in my Bible, which is, of course, the Principia Discordia, and we'll see if it lets me today.
Okay, cool. Let's move on. Let's do another game here. It's one we rarely do. We haven't done in a long time, where we cast the movie, and here's a song.
What if the two of us were casting a film, deciding who was out and who would get in? It won't probably happen, but a fella can dream. Casting a movie again.
So let's say you were going to make a movie of the Bible Code that wasn't the Da Vinci Code. There's only really two main characters in this book, basically. One is the author himself, and the other is good old Eli Rips.
Yep.
Best name in the world of, I would say, biblical scholarship.
Or air guitar championship competery.
Oh, wait, and he's a mathematician, not a biblical scholar. So, yeah, whatever. Who cares? His name rules. Eli Rips.
He's got 5 kids, so we know he's virile as fuck, too.
Yeah. So, let's start out with Drosden, and you go first.
So, yeah, to me, this is basically a kind of procedural newspaper kind of movie, and we need a central figure who's, likable, but maybe not entirely trustworthy. Mm-hmm. If you're going to spend 90 minutes with him, you want to kind of love the character, but not really be sure he or she is right or maybe even sane.
Yeah.
I also think we're probably not going to have the biggest of budgets for this. Mm-hmm. So I want, and I might butcher his first name, and I apologize if I do, but Lakeith Stanfield.
Who's that?
He is the guy, he was just in Death Note.
Oh.
The Netflix version that everybody in the universe but me hated and that I thought was okay. He plays the detective. Yeah. He was also in Get Out, a small but powerful role as the kind of youngish African American who had been subjected to the procedure, and it basically had the mind of a creepy old white guy.
He was the guy who played Light in Death Note then.
No, he wasn't Light. He was the detective.
Okay. I gotcha.
And like, I don't know. I think he's just like a wonderful actor, and he's just got this like really interesting kind of compelling but untrustworthy presence, and I think he would be fine for that.
Okay, so I went a little different here in that I think I was going a little more visual and just thinking about, the kind of person that looks like I imagine Michael Drosnin to look, acts, or at least is very good at playing characters that act the way I think Michael Drosnin would look, and that's Tony Shalhoub, television's Monk.
Yeah.
I believe he would be very, very good at sending crackpot letters to world leaders and kind of fretting about things unnecessarily. So yeah, that was my pick.
I like it. Okay, so for Eli Rips, we need somebody with like, this is, if we're gonna make this a good movie out of a bad book, we need our Drosnin to be like counterbalanced by somebody who has like some gravitas, and we need somebody who like can introduce a little bit of humor. You know what I mean? Somebody who's serious but not humorless, I think.
Okay.
So I was thinking, who can pull all this off? Obviously, they also have to like convey a certain degree of intelligence, which not every actor is great at. So I'm thinking Paul Giamatti.
I love Paul Giamatti. He's one of my go-tos for just about every time we do this, so I agree 100%. I feel like I went in the complete opposite direction.
Kate Hudson.
Yes. No, I was, admittedly, like the first thing that came into my mind was he needs to be visibly Jewish, for sure. And maybe somebody who's, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, fuck it. Eli Roth.
Wow. So when I said gravitas, humor,
I was not
and
going
charm,
I was not going for either of those.
And playing intelligent.
No.
Right.
I was going for directed hostile. Yeah. So
that's pretty crucial. We also probably could have gone a complete opposite direction and like, who can play a lightly crackpotty mathematician? How about
Christopher Lloyd?
I mean, I was thinking more like Lindsay Lohan.
Oh, see, yeah, you went gender swap too. I was also thinking, and I know I'm going to pronounce her name wrong because I always do. Gal Gadot. Yeah, but mostly just because I like her. Don't at me. I know she's problematic. She is my problematic bae. Anyway.
So, as always, Hollywood, if you're listening and you think this sounds good, get at us.
Yeah.
We're happy to put some things on hold, come down, and like get this fucking thing in the works.
Is Rip Torn still alive? Because from name alone, he'd be a good choice.
I have no idea, but maybe?
Yeah. Don Rickles?
He is dead.
Well, that's a bummer.
Right.
Anyway, so moving on.
May he rest in peace.
Yeah. May he. I don't think Don Rickles will ever rest in peace. He never really struck me as a peaceful soul. But anyway, moving on. Let's do one more game here, and this is What Would They Do?
Sometimes the tensions are hard to divine, and others the clear as day. So tell me, what would they do?
All right, so what would they do? Normally when we're dealing with fiction, we try to put ourselves in the shoes of a character of the book, figure out what they would do. In this case,
but this is made up bullshit, not fiction.
Yeah.
So obviously, all bets are off.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's get nuts.
Yeah.
Let's imagine we had this.
You mean we had the secrets to the Bible code?
Yeah. So we had Turbo Pascal. Installed on our machines, and
the ability to awkwardly transliterate Hebrew into broken English.
Right.
Yeah.
The floppies with the Bible encoded on them.
Yeah, and little pieces of tape over the notches so you could continue to save things on them even after they've been copy protected.
Yep. And what would you type into the old search box, Jay? And if you need a second to think, I've been thinking about this a lot. Because, I I've been Googling myself for years.
Yeah.
And I'm frankly not stoked with what I get.
Yeah.
So given a new data source other than the internet, I think I would enjoy it more.
Okay, yeah, you go first.
So I think first I would obviously just Google myself in the Bible code. So I Bible code myself, right?
What would you be hoping to find?
I don't know, is cool.
Virile, handsome.
Yeah. Collision rules. Like that would be the best.
That's not the Bible code. That's what you used to spray paint on the back of the 7-Eleven.
You say Bible code, I say spray paint on the back of the 7-Eleven, brother. And then too much of this book is a little bit like watching a completely failed Biff. Look at this source of
Sports almanac.
incalculable levels of information and completely fuck it up and fail to use it in any way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I wouldn't want to be that guy. I wouldn't, try to bet on anything, but I would definitely look up the Colorado Avalanche and see how they're going to do in millennia to come. Then I would probably have to start getting a little bit crazy, fuck it. What does the Bible code have to say about Voltron?
Yeah.
What does the Bible code have to say about Babar the elephant? You know what I mean?
I have to stop you because you have just written Ready Player One.
Okay, first off, fuck you. Second off, ouch. Third off, I'm going home.
Well, okay, so I guess I'm taking this a little more literally, and then I'm putting myself directly into the shoes of Mr. Drosnin here.
Okay.
And I think the first thing would obviously be my own name. And I'm really surprised he didn't do that. You mentioned your own name.
Right.
If you had access to this technology, that would be the first thing I think anybody would search for.
And then you would definitely look to see if it was crossed by prophet, savior,
inexplicably best-selling author.
Baller.
Yeah.
Shot caller.
Yeah. I wish I was a little bit taller.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think after that I would probably go for Tupac and Biggie, because as we know, the Bible code is much better at telling you why things happen in the past than things that will happen in the future. So I would definitely go for Tupac, Biggie. Look for instances of Suge Knight, Sean Puffy Combs.
My God, it was Isaiah who did it all along.
The title of that horrible new show on USA Network, which I can't remember. And then I guess Rey Mysterio Jr.
Just to see.
Yeah, to see.
But I have to tell you, the last thing I would do is I would 100% key in, "Are you the sealed book?"
Oh, yeah.
Which I conjecture would cause the screen to execute some kind of 4D The Matrix fold, and the computer would then become self-aware, and that would probably inaugurate the end of days. Because one thing that happens about 10 times in this book is Drosnin has an argument with somebody about if there is information coded in this Bible, who put it there? And there's basically two opinions. God, or I don't know, it's just there.
Yeah.
But there's an obvious third option, and no one ever considers it. What if the code had been put there by Satan, the adversary himself, and activating it is actually what ushers in the end of days?
This just brings me right back to my problem in that Drosnin has a lot of problems with conflating the idea of the Old Testament and the Bible. And I would just like to point out that Satan does not appear in the Torah. And God, that pisses me off.
I will say that the most accurate thing about this book is that he consistently and accurately refers to the book as not Revelations, but Revelation, as the name of the book is in fact the Revelation of St. John the Divine.
There you go.
Throw him that bone, and that exhausts my store of Bible trivia for the year.
It is also worth noting that Revelations is not part of the Old Testament.
No, that actually wraps up the New Testament.
Yeah, and there's just so much conflation here between Jewish mysticism and Christian theology, and I'm getting all serious again, but it's fucking frustrating. I can't help it.
Jay?
Yes.
What's it going to take to get you into a New Testament today? We got commandments. We got demandments.
Do you have diamonds on the back and a sunroof top?
We got new covenants. We got floods. We got arcs. We got animals.
How about hydraulics that bounce up and down at a stoplight?
I see you're a mega church guy. I like your style. I'm going to have to go talk to my manager and see if I can get you a New Testament without that undercoating that you and I both know you don't want.
I'm only interested in your theology if it's clean on the outside, cream on the inside with an ice cream paint job.
You know, Jay, you strike me as a savvy negotiator.
I am.
A guy who knows what $1 is worth. That's why I'm going to put
Are you being racist right now?
That's why I'm going to put you into a testament.
I'm feeling very attacked.
That's like, what is it? Interior crocodile alligator.
Oh, okay.
You're going to drive a mobile movie theater.
Nice. Raindrop, drop top, etc., etc. Let's see how many rap car jokes we can fit in the next 10 minutes, I guess.
GameCube Nintendo. My favorite Houston era rhyme was definitely that. Anyway,
So now that we're done chopping and screwing the Bible, as it were.
And not as badly as Drosnin did.
Yeah.
Man, this book would be so much better on some scissor.
I was just going to say, if you put it on half speed and drank some lean, fuck. I mean, you know, right before you died, this would be a great book.
I now recommend this book under a very specific circumstance.
It comes highly endorsed by UGK, so... Any more games?
I don't have any more games.
I don't. This is definitely not a Russian roulette because if you flip to a page, there's like a 1 in 5 chance that it's just going to be a weird ass acrostic.
What are the odds against that?
They're 1 in 5.
Weird.
So yeah, let's take another break. You know, go outside, enjoy the sunshine. You know, make our cars bounce up and down.
Hope there's not a comet hurtling towards us, as was foretold.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, we'll be right back to talk about things that are not the Bible code. Thank God, or whatever you believe in. We'll be back.
Thanks, Godzilla.
Pop, pop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief it is to not be talking about the Bible code anymore. We're back, and we're doing the last segment of the show where we recommend things that don't totally suck and make me want to douse my head in chemicals and light it on fire.
As was foretold.
That was foretold in the Bible code, by the way. They didn't even know about podcasts back then, but they were like, watch out for this guy. He's going to light his head on fire.
Also foretold in the episode template, which I occasionally share with guests, and gets feedback like, holy shit, dude, stop it. And this makes it feel like homework. Oops.
Whoops.
Sorry, everybody.
Hey, you know what? There is nothing wrong with being well prepared for a podcast.
We're a formatty show. What can I tell you?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we could just be two dudes chatting about bullshit, but we like to come at you with some structure. Enjoy.
Instead, we're two dudes checking about bullshit with occasional checkpoints to do predetermined things.
Yep, exactly. But yeah, in this occasional checkpoint that we're racing towards, we like to recommend... Wow, that was cool.
Thank you.
It was like really being there. We like to recommend things that aren't bad, and I guess I'll go first. I'm going to recommend a book that was given to me by my good pal and co-host, Mr. Collision.
What?
Yeah, and it is a book by Chris Leo, who you may know as the former vocalist of seminal emo bands, Native Nod and the Van Pelt, both of which I love greatly. And it's a book of short stories and poems called Feathers Like Leather. I enjoyed it. I don't think you need to be a fan of those bands to appreciate it. It's written in a very poignant, kind of personal style. It covers a lot of different topics. There are a few poems in here that are actually lyrics to Van Pelt songs, and it made me realize that these were obviously poems before they became songs because they work so well without the music, you know. And it is worth noting he is one of the kind of spoken wordy type of vocalists. Like, it's also worth noting that his brother is the mighty Ted Leo, and Chris, I think, frequently is overshadowed by the fact that his brother does everything in the world incredibly well. So it's good to see him get a piece of the spotlight. I really enjoyed this a lot. Feathers Like Leather by Chris Leo.
And like, it's probably great. It's probably even a tiny bit greater if you've got some band doing lightly droney, loud, soft stuff in the background.
Yeah, for sure.
Ooh, that sounds amazing. And if every couple of paragraphs, like, you just imagine that one sentence is being screamed really beautifully.
Yeah, I mean, the Van Pelt, there wasn't a lot of screaming. There was a lot of just kind of talking. But it is worth noting that he was really into kind of writing about politics in a very esoteric way. They had songs called, like, Do the Lovers Still Meet at the Chiang Kai-shek Memorial and things like that. Oh. And yeah, I mean, he's a very smart guy. It's a really, really entertaining book to read. The short stories feel very real. The poems are very emotional and good. And, you know, it's a brisk read, and I enjoyed it. So thank you very much, buddy.
My pleasure. It was a fun thing to stumble over at one of Oakland's better record stores. That was Econo Jam Records, the worst named record store of all time, but good store, good folks. I saw that and was like, hey, I know somebody who loves him some Chris Leo. And I flipped through it just enough to realize, or just enough to ensure that it was just not some other dude with the name Chris Leo.
Yeah.
Because if I had the name of a famous, like, well-regarded lyricist, kind of, you know, indie poet, I would definitely try to coattail that motherfucker, believe that.
Yeah, for sure.
But nobody can do that to me.
Yeah, surprisingly, it's not credited to Chris, brother of Ted Leo, but just Chris Leo. And I mean, that I'm not casting shade. It's just, as we all know, Ted Leo is, you know, he does everything, and he does everything really well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
By the way, Ted, if you ever want to come on the show,
there is a space for you anytime, every time.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a recommendation too, and it was actually really prompted both by some reading I've been doing and a major glaring fault in this book. This book seems to think that, and Michael Drosnin in particular, seems to think that translating means you go letter by letter and you write down the equivalent and see if that sounds like anything you know about.
Yeah.
And that's not what translating is about. And I know that for two reasons. One, I am excruciatingly bad at learning languages, but have tried many times over the years. And two, because I've been reading Emily Wilson, both her new translation of the Odyssey and her accounts of translating the Odyssey. She does this thing on Twitter fairly regularly where she will pick a particular, passage, usually no more than a line or two, line up 4 or 5 famous translations, show the choices they make, then show the choice she makes, and kind of lay out what she sees as the pros and cons of all of them. And it's just the most interesting damn reading in the world. And it makes you realize that, every word makes you have to think.
Yeah.
If you're doing it right. It's not just a matter of, going thing for thing. It's really great. I'll link to an interview or two that'll lay it out in the show notes in case you're interested. But also, her translation of the Odyssey is very good. I know we differ slightly about this, but one of the choices she made was to try to render it in a metered form, which is a very rare thing to do.
Yeah.
And that lends it something that's not immediately obvious. So maybe try reading chunks of it aloud to understand what that does add to the experience.
That's really interesting. And now I need to Google it because I can't remember the name of it. But I just recently read an article, I think on the Millions, about the why a lot of American literature has had trouble gaining a foothold in China, and it's mostly due to the difficulties of translating English into Chinese in a way that retains kind of the flow and the poetic nature and the style. And
Is that why the gore novels haven't taken off in China?
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's definitely the main reason why, the girl with the dragon tattoo. No, I'm just kidding. But it was a really interesting article that kind of addressed some of the same things. So
Interesting. Now perhaps it's time to move away from recommendations.
letters.
A, letter B, letter C, letter D, letter E, letter M, letter G, letter. Got a lot of letters.
All right, so you send us stuff. Sometimes we read it. Sometimes we read it out loud on the air. Sometimes we read it and seethe inwardly.
Have we had any things like that recently?
We have. And I do, I just want to say, first of all, we appreciate all correspondence. And we appreciate all constructive criticism, especially when it comes to choices we've made, maybe mistakes we've made on the air, maybe when we've said something that is offensive and not realized it. We enjoy being corrected about that so we can make sure not to fuck up again.
Right.
That sort of stuff is always good to get. Sometimes, however, we get letters that are very critical of things that are not choices we're making, but say, the nature of who we are or the sound of our voices. And, if you're going to write something like that and it bothers you that much, maybe just don't listen to the show.
Right. Or just write it, and then having had the satisfaction of writing it, don't share it with me. Like, I know how my voice sounds. It's maybe not the most pleasing thing. Sorry, there are many other choices you could make in your listening. So instead of crapping on me or crapping on anybody else, maybe just don't subject yourself to something you don't enjoy.
Yeah, I don't want to be crammed into a digital locker whenever I open up our email account. So, just keep that in mind. And we're not saying this to beg for mercy. Obviously, there are plenty of valid criticisms out there. But I would say before you hit send on an email, just stop to think, am I being a jerk?
Yeah. And if the answer is yes, rethink.
Yeah. Anyway, but in addition to that, we also get tons and tons of great letters that far outnumber those ones. So
Yeah.
let's focus on that and,
All right.
and kind of focus on the positive for now.
Yes. This is an electronic mail we recently received. Actually, not that recently. I'm afraid I'm a little bit behind on stuff. Sorry.
We get behind on letters a lot, and and we do get quite a few letters. We try to read the interesting ones, but
Yep.
we don't want to spend 2 hours just reading letters on an episode because I know as a podcast listener, no one wants to hear that. So we may be a bit behind.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
We're behind. If you send us a great letter and we never read it, it's not that we didn't read it, we didn't love it. It's just that we can't read everything. Sorry.
Yeah.
But this one we are going to read, and this is from Sarah, fake last name. Hello, I don't even own a podcast. Okay, first off, major points for a deep pull.
Yeah.
Callback.
I forgot. I used to say that all the time.
For like 5 years.
Yeah, it's been like 5. I don't think I made that mistake for like 3 or 4 years,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's a deep pull.
I've struggled with writing you guys because I don't want to look like some kind of crazed, stalking fangirl. And I have serious anxiety about emailing people I haven't ever spoken to because they don't know how witty and charming the inserted jokes really are. But I love the podcast, and as an artist myself, it always feels good when people let you know your art means something to them. So, gird yourself for some ego stroking.
Yes.
Yes, I'm imagining Collision reading ego stroking in a manner that both makes Jay blush and awkwardly laugh.
Okay, first of all, I am not a shrinking violet, guys. Like, sometimes I play this up for comedy, but I've done the sex, and I talk about the sex sometimes. It's okay.
When I got here, Jay was actually having his ego stroked.
I was.
I was the one blushing. Roles reversed.
No, I want to put an end to that meme right now.
That's fair.
Because I mean, I'm a sexy dude and I know it. Anyway,
We're two sexy men in the sexiest medium known to humanity. That's right, podcasting.
yeah, by podcasting standards, we're pretty good looking, dude.
Hey, I've been to meetups, and it made me look around and say, all right,
Yeah.
I'm doing okay.
So now that we've offended everyone else in our preferred medium, let's continue with the letter.
No, I'm just an arrogant man who I would have done the same thing backstage in an episode of American Gladiators. I would have been like, I'm looking okay.
That ice has got nothing on me.
Yeah, exactly.
Old lightning over there.
Those guys think they're better than me just because their faces are symmetrical and their muscles are large. But no, I'm the one who looks good in this situation. Back to Sarah. I started listening to the show at the Dragons of Autumn Twilight episode.
Oh, wow.
And I've now gone back to catch everything from the beginning. Weird aside, Jay, the evolution of your jingles is awesome. It was a treat to hear them debut over time. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
And a special thank you to Jay for the book recommendation for my dad around Christmas. I haven't gotten to borrow the Dog Stars from him yet, but he got rather misty when describing the story to me. He's been having health issues, and he found a special connection to the book that I still don't quite understand. But the fact that he found that connection means more than you can possibly know.
I remember recommending that book specifically because it made me cry in a bar, and I felt very, very silly. And it does have this kind of... I don't know how to describe it without being reductive, but it does have this kind of like masculine melancholy that I feel like a lot of dads would enjoy. And also apparently a lot of guys in their late 30s who have maybe had a couple too many IPAs. So it's a good book.
Nice. Thank you both for the work that you do. Oh, and Jay, you have a great laugh. Anyone who says it's annoying can fuck right off.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier.
Collision's vocal patterns and your laugh are two of my favorite parts of the show. Laugh proudly.
So, she likes your voice and is apparently also a big fan of Muttley from Wacky Racers. Because I'm well aware that's what I sound like when I laugh. But anyway, thank you so much. My ego is duly stroked.
Yeah. Whoa, he's stroking it now.
Yeah, look out. Avert your eyes.
So, yeah, thank you so much for that. And as to the other thing that you said in your letter, yeah, we'll get back to you. So, let us move to the second letter. And this is an unusual letter indeed, as this letter is a physical artifact.
Dun, dun, dun.
So I'm going to read the card, and Jay, you can kind of go through the box here.
Okay. Oh, wow, there's a box of a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and this is from our dear friend Danica, who has been around for a very long time and, even helped put together the IDEO TV wiki, which if you didn't know we have a wiki. So if you want to log in and compete with one another about how awesome we are, you can do so. And anyway, the card from Danica is covered in bunnies, which is very on brand.
Yep.
And it goes like this. Thanks for introducing me to so many good books. I just got my book club to read Annihilation, a book which everyone either loved or hated, but everyone said they couldn't put it down. The guy in the group who wants to read Ready Player One for the 5th time.
Oh my God.
Called it a, quote, weird fungus book, unquote, which secretly delighted me to no end.
Don't let him near Bourne. That one's even weirder and more fungusy.
Please enjoy the books. Susie Webmaster is, against all odds, not erotica. I found it at the Black Horse London pub, and when I asked the proprietor if I could have it, he said, quote, I don't fucking care, unquote.
This looks like erotica. And it's worth noting that the subtitle is The Pearls of Wisdom, which is definitely not helping dissuade me from that fact. There's also quite a few...
The back of the book is...
Yeah,
wow.
oh, that's on the front too. Don't worry, it's the same
okay.
image. But yeah, there's some stock photos of attractive people. One of them is a woman in glasses with no lenses that very much looks like, what was the movie where they made Tara Reid a scientist?
Oh, Alone in the Dark,
Yeah,
which actually is also the title of the documentary made about the guy who saw Alone in the Dark in the theater. The one guy who saw Alone in the Dark in the theater. That would be me. Yeah, it also has a... I'm not even going to say what that lady has the vibe of, but yes, the erotica vibe is not unstrong on that cover.
The non-American erotica vibe, I would say, yeah, for sure. There's some prominent cleavage also as well, but oh man, this looks great. I've got to say, Susie Webmaster and the Pearls of Wisdom. I mean, any book with where the front cover and the back cover are identical,
Yeah.
you know you're in for quality. Like, there's not even a blurb on the back. It's the same image.
I mean, as a guy who occasionally has to half-ass it in InDesign at work, that cover design speaks quite loudly to me. It sounds like we're about to get an impromptu Russian roulette, too.
Yeah, I just want to read just a little bit of this because I figured opening this up would be good, and oh man, I was right. Another head popped up among the large grass at that instant, and Tidbit recognized it straight away. A swabber, Tidbit gasped. It was Stinky.
Well, as long as it's not hermetically sealed complete bullshit that's impenetrable to an outside reader, that sounds great to me.
There is also in here something that looks to be torn out of an old publication that says, I will train you at home for good pay jobs in radio television. Yes. I trained these men. And then there's just 3 guys' faces who apparently worked on the radio, and we can mail in for 2 books free, except it's probably far too late.
Oh, my goodness. And that, for the record, for those of you who are Patreon supporters, looks to be a page that might have been ripped out of an analog magazine because it's got exactly that digest-sized form factor.
There's also Rocket Stories, which is another digest-sized...
Oh, that's the back cover of Rocket Stories.
Oh, it is, yes. Look, it looks like it was ripped out, yeah.
Which leads me to the next paragraph in Danica's card. Also, for your consideration is Rocket Stories, which includes the complete novella, Blood on My Jets.
Ooh, that's not good.
I don't think we're going to consider that so much as freaking adore it. And then the letter concludes, may the enclosed snacks give you the fortitude to keep devouring bad books so we don't have to. Best regards, D.
And there are good multicultural snacks. I mean, we have some organic coconut snacks here, yes, with chia seeds and cranberries and stuff. And then there's also the authentic Japanese rice cracker Shanghai mix.
And I just can't stress this enough. If you're listening to this and you're not Danica, be more like Danica.
And if you want to get your letter read on the show, send us cool beanies because...
Oh, holy shit.
Yeah, we both got San Francisco SPCA beanies, which is super cool.
That's like lined with what is spelled tricot, but I am reliably informed is pronounced trico.
Oh, I had no idea. Yeah. But yeah, it looks really comfortable. And I just recently cut my hair, so hats fit on my head again. That's good. And
it has, to let you behind the curtain, been cold AF in the old Bay Area the last couple of days.
That's very true.
Could not have arrived at a better time. Danica, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for, this is like a care package. This is awesome. But for everybody listening at home, of course, if you just want to write us an email, if you just want to write us a letter in the mail, it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be filled with awesome stuff, right, but it doesn't hurt. So yeah, I think that brings us to the end of the show. If you want to stay in touch with us in our goings on, we are on Twitter and Facebook at IDEOTVPod. Mm-hmm. You can email us at idon'tevenowntotelevision@gmail.com. And hey, what makes this show possible?
Why, Jay, that's sheer bloody hard work.
Well, but what else?
But also, that is our dear friends and supporters on Patreon. We're at patreon.com/IDEOTVPod. Patreon, in case you don't know, is a subscription service where you pledge an amount completely of your choosing, a monthly amount completely of your choosing, and you get a variety of possible rewards. At the $5 level, you get an extra episode every month,
which may or may not be about a book, depending on what kind of mood we're in
and how much time we have.
Yeah, that too,
and so forth. But those are a hell of a lot of fun. Other levels get other stuff, including physical merch. And we try to pack in a lot of extras. One thing that we've been doing a little bit over the last month or so is we're trying to make sure that at least every week, anybody who donates at any level gets an extra little blast of audio from us. It tends to be like a new story or like an extra thing that we didn't get to in the book that's worth discussing or worth at least holding up and saying, holy shit, what is this about?
A long tangent, perhaps, from an episode that was edited out, right, that you may find entertaining. So yeah, we're trying to pump out that content for anyone who wants to help us at any level.
Yeah.
But of course, you know,
I mean, we're really just trying to make it worth your while because we appreciate everybody who steps up, and we just want to give you a little something extra.
but of course, even if you can't or do not want to, we appreciate you listening to the show, and we hope you continue to do so. If you do, please go to wherever you get podcasts from and give us a good review and a 5-star rating, because that helps a ton.
Yeah. There has been this one review lingering on iTunes since before I was on the show.
I think it was episode 3 when that review was posted.
And like, I think it's just a fucking bug in the matrix that it's still there. But I urge all of you to help us rise up, fight the bug in the matrix, and like wipe that thing off, because it's misguided.
Yeah,
in
let's
the
say
extreme.
it's somebody who is looking for serious literature criticism, which you're not going to find that here, folks.
Yeah, you know, like I get that maybe McDonald's isn't your thing, but don't go to McDonald's and complain that the sirloin sucked.
Wait, are we McDonald's in this analogy?
Look, I hadn't thought about this before, and I'm doing the best I can.
I feel like I'm at least like a Hardee's $6 burger, so or Carl's Jr. Sorry, we're on the West Coast. But yeah, so everybody, thank you so much for listening. We will be back in another 2 weeks with another book, and until then,
Is it foretold in prophecy that you will?
ride the crab.
Indeed, it is.
Rideth the crab.
Holy shit! How did neither of us say like we would look up "ride the crab" in the fucking Bible code?
Oh my God, we really, really dropped the ball. But yeah, ride it.
Look. Nuclear war. Yeah. Nuclear war. Yeah. They're talking about nuclear war. Yeah. Nuclear war. Yeah. The nuclear war. Yeah. They're talking about nuclear war. Yeah. It's a motherfucker. Don't you know? They're talking about nuclear war.